Okay, so as stated in the video yesterday, I'm going to be starting an AI automation agency. I hate that buzzword. It sounds really gay, but I have basically AI automation is one thing, and then we also have high-level apps and dashboards and websites, and it's generally kind of just a software development agency. In this video, I'm going to talk about my plan for starting this. I've been studying a couple people who have successful agencies doing the same thing, and I plan to take their advice because they share it very openly, as I will be doing. Um, and yeah, so I'm just going to talk through kind of my approach, and this is the start of my website. Really, what I want to make clear here is I have recent projects listed, and what I want to have is I want to have a lot of kind of projects that aren't necessarily client related. That's one of my things here is I like the idea of an agency for having cash flow and being able to take on work and everything. But there's also this idea of like building products is fun, and I think it's really fun just to build shit just in your free time. And so, yeah, I want to have kind of this umbrella where I can just build different products and hopefully eventually build something that is productized or can be just sold to a mass market. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, these are the two people I'm learning from. So, Devin Kern's Custom AI Studio. He had this video a few months ago that popped off. It's a great title 18 Months of Building Autonomous Agents in 42 Minutes. And then we also have this guy who is 20. I'm 22. He's 20, and he has a pretty big agency. It's a software development agency that he's been running since he was like 17 or 18, so a long time. And here's what I've kind of gleaned from them. So the first thing, and this is from what was his name? Joe. I've never actually tried to pronounce that. Joe. So the first thing is finding the right audience, and you want to find someone who has enough money because if you solve, a small problem, let's say a small problem for a business can grow their revenue by 10%. Well, if they're doing $10,000 a month, or let's say $100,000 a year, then that 10% problem can make them $10,000, and so you can take a portion of that, like half, maybe $5,000 for that one client. But if you're solving problems for $1 million business, then that 10% is 100 grand and you make 50 grand. And maybe it's the same problem, but you're just solving it for a bigger business. So you want to find the right audience that you can connect with, that you sort of like. This is from my kind of experience, that you sort of like, but that also has money that can pay you. You wouldn't want to do this for, I don't know, landscapers or something that are one man shows. So for me, I'm going to be choosing high level agencies. That's kind of what I'm familiar with, and that's really all there's to it. And they make decent money, the big ones. Then the next thing is finding a single problem that you can solve. And I think Zhao, I'm really sorry if you watch this. I think he didn't focus on this at the start, which is why he was giving that advice. And I'm not really sure what I'll focus on at the start as the problem. These agencies have a ton of different problems, and I think it'll be more down to finding like what are the biggest pain points consistently. What do people hire me for? And then after I've done two maybe three projects that are the same, then I'm thinking at that point I can say, okay, this could be a productized service where I can sell it for the same amount of money, but it'll take me a day to fulfill instead of 2 weeks, and then I can just roll that into a nicer business. Um, and then the last thing is just to focus on marketing because as developers, we tend to like building and writing code, and there's actually a big part of it which should be the business development, winning clients. Um, then, in terms of marketing, it's going to be content led. So I'll keep creating content on YouTube. That'll probably be more B2B focused, talking about, different technologies and solutions to solve problems in a business context. Um, then also repurposing this to post on X, LinkedIn, and Meta. I've never really had much success with any of these platforms, but I know some of my ICPs are on there, and it could be, kind of a waste to not post on there, especially if I'm getting people visiting those profiles regardless, and it just helps to have some, content on there. Then finally, I think targeted outreach is really going to help because I have a very specific, with my target customer group, it's well defined. Like someone either has a high-level agency or they don't. And so I can reach out to every single person with a high-level agency. The only problem at that point is finding out who that is and how to contact them, but that's a solvable problem. So targeted outreach. Then, in terms of the sales and fulfillment process, this is where stuff gets a little bit more complicated and, yeah, just a little bit more kind of tedious, I guess. So the first thing is what I've seen, and I think I learned this from Devin here, is that it works well to have a 3-step sales process. And this is kind of what I was finding when I was doing a few consulting projects in the past, where first of all, a client will, book a meeting or they'll submit a lead form or whatever, and I'll call them and we'll have a little chat. And essentially, in my mind, I want to talk to them and see if they have a real project. There's plenty of people out there with pipe dreams and they go, hey, this is going to be $1 billion app. I just need you to build it and you can take, 10% of the company. I go, obviously that's a harebrained idea and it's just stupid. So you don't want to work with those people. You want to weed them out. And then in the customer's mind, they want to talk to you and make sure that you're professional and that you actually sound, seem to know what you're talking about, which is less of a problem if they come off of YouTube, but regardless. Then after that, you set up a longer meeting, something like an hour, where you're going to dive into the problem and talk to them and figure out what are the kind of nuances of the problem and like, what is the problem, if that's not really discussed. Like some people might even just say, I want to implement AI into my business, which is a fine starting point, but it's not a problem. So you ask them, what's the biggest problem you need solved? And you try to get into that and figure out, brainstorm some different solutions for them. Interestingly, if we go to Custom AI Studio's website, which I may have taken some inspiration from, can't blame me. He actually has his pricing listed right on the website, starting at $225 an hour for consulting, including wireframes and workshops, strategy. I'm thinking he might be charging for the second meeting. I don't exactly know, but this is almost something that I would want to provide as much value to so that they would feel like they want to pay me. I've had people just pay me for this alone because it's a lot of kind of talking about the problem and looking into solutions that they might not know about, not being a developer. After that's done, then I'll go away and I'll try to put together a scope of work, cost estimate and proof of concept if that's possible. This is one of the things that Yao, bro, I say his name different every fucking time, J.O. was saying is, like, if you can give more stuff away for free, you can win more trust and make the client happier. And if I can put together a proof of concept, if they just want like a simple CRUD app and I can put together a CRUD app in like 2 hours and send it to them, that's amazing for winning their trust. And I'm probably going to win that deal, even if someone else gave them a better quote or whatever. Assuming the POC isn't bad. And then the scope of work and cost estimate are pretty difficult. I mean, what I found works well with creating the scope is you really just sit there and you think and you write down exactly how things have to work. So instead of saying like, yeah, we'll just have a system that syncs contacts from this CRM to this CRM, you got to get really granular. You got to say, okay, that means every 1 hour we're pulling this system and we're pulling out all the contacts, and then we're pulling the other system and we're pulling out all those contacts, we're comparing that list, and then we're re-upserting those contacts, where we have updated or new information. And so that's just an example of how you have to go very granular to really get like a good kind of scope. And it'll also have to help you figure out where the potential points of failure are, because in every app, there are some of these things that you don't realize at the start, where you just go, oh, we'll just, as an example, when I was building a system to sync contacts from High Level, the CRM, to ZenBooker, the scheduling software, I was like, yeah, we'll just, check if there's a contact with the same phone number in that scheduling software from the CRM. But this isn't exactly straightforward, because in order to do that, you have to first like that platform, the scheduling platform has to have an API to search by phone number, which was what we were using to deduplicate people, and they didn't actually have a search function. So they've added it recently, but they didn't have that, and so I was kind of going off the basis that they would have it, and I came up with a workaround, which was just paginating through the API and pulling out every single contact, 100 at a time, which took forever. And that caused problems, and it could have caused bigger problems in the future if we kept having to do it that way. And so that's one of those things where you have to look through like the documentation of the apps you're going to be using, and figure out what does the data look like. Are you actually able to manipulate it or interact with that system in the way that you want to be able to do? So yeah, breaking that stuff down and then potentially writing a report of that. Like, hey, here's what could go wrong, and here's my research on why I think it should be okay, or why that might be a problem, and we might have to think of something else. So yeah, I mean, this is a big process. This probably takes me 2 or 3 hours for every client to write all this stuff down. But after that, then we'll go on to meeting number 3, and I'm going to share this proof of concept and just see if we can agree on a price and timeline. Then, as far as fulfillment goes, this is from Yao. Basically, you over-communicate on the process. I think I've done this pretty well in the past, sending them messages, like, basically every time I worked on it. Like, multiple times a day, just like, blah, 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 here's what I'm working on. And I like to talk, as you can tell, so I think this is a good thing. But then also, like, having more detailed communication, like sending looms and stuff to keep them updated. And then finally, having really high standards, actually higher than the client's, because if the client's expectation is here and your expectation is here, and you fulfill your expectation, it's not going to meet their expectation. So your expectation has to be higher than theirs. And so if you meet your expectation, you're going to meet theirs. So you have to have really high expectations for, design and the way things work and the way the overall user experience for the client, because they're the one who's going to be paying you, using it, and hopefully referring you. And then I have a couple questions I haven't really figured out yet. So first one is this right up here, a single problem to focus on. I think this will come with time, and the idea with this agency is not to consult and build custom projects for everyone. It's to end up selling a productized product, either as a software, kind of standalone product, or as kind of a build and release model, to get buzzwordy. Then there's a question of, when do I productize my service and product? In the past, I've made some mistakes where I didn't really validate an idea before going into it, and I think that needs to be part of this question, which is like, how do we validate? How do we make sure that what I'm doing is going to be worth the time, rather than taking on more clients? And then finally, how should I set up my pricing? Because previously I've done just one-off price. I'll give them the scope and everything. I'll say, look, this is what I think I should charge in order to be able to do this. And I also quote very fucking cheap, apparently, because this guy charges 10 build hours. So I'm guessing this is starting out $8,500 a month with 10 build hours per week, which is 40 build hours per month. So if we do 8,500 divided by 40, that's $212 an hour. And that's definitely not what I'm charging. So I think I need to be charging more, but you also notice they're charging $8,500 a month for ongoing development, which makes sense, especially in this. They focus on AI agents, and that makes sense because it's hard to scope an AI agent project, especially when the client keeps wanting improvements or tweaks, and you don't really know how long this stuff is going to take. But yeah, I mean, I think Yao also does the same thing. I think he also does a monthly kind of price. And so I want to think of this. I'm not really sure like how much clients would jive with the monthly cost, but I do think it's an interesting idea. But yeah, that's basically all my thoughts. I've tired myself out from talking. But yeah, thanks for watching.